topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Welcome back, everybody, to Winning Business Radio, now TV, of course. I'm your host, Kevin Hallinan. The mission of Winning Business Radio, as regular listeners know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, to learn best practices, the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and certainly to be inspired, and hopefully to be inspired by the successes of others. But here's the interesting thing. Every successful person that I've ever had a chance to talk to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, you hear me say every week, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. Today, my guest is Timothy Kenneally, employment and labor attorney with Foley & Foley PC. Here's his bio. Attorney Tim Kenneally has been with the law firm Foley & Foley since March of 2008. Prior to that, Tim served as a litigator for 15 years at an insurance defense firm. Tim combines perspectives gained as a principal legal advisor to numerous small, medium, and large companies with immersive experience in economic policy to protect organizations from risk without compromising their businesses. He's well-versed in employment law, contract law, HIPAA, affirmative action, and real estate. He anticipates potential obstacles to construct agreements that enhance, not impede, business relationships. Tim leverages his organizational and planning skills to identify and seize opportunities to minimize exposure for businesses and their leaders. He's an accomplished civil litigator and negotiator who can mitigate risk when preventative programs are tested. Tim's practice involves the representation of clients in matters involving employment and labor law, data security and personal information protection, insurance, contracts, and litigation. He successfully resolved hundreds of cases in the state and federal courts, at the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, before other administrative agencies, and through grievance arbitration. Tim has negotiated, drafted, and enforced a multitude of employment and business contracts for clients of Foley & Foley. He graduated from Suffolk Law School in Boston with a Juris Doctor cum laude degree in 1993. He's a 1990 graduate of the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. He was admitted to the Bar Association of the Massachusetts Bar, in 1993, the United States District Court in 1995, the U.S. Supreme Court in 2002, and the Pennsylvania Bar in 2016. Tim's a past president of the Tri-Town Chamber of Commerce in Mansfield, Massachusetts from 14 to 16, and is currently a member of its board of directors. He was vice president of the Rotary Club of Foxborough in 2016 and is a former member of the Economic Development Committee and of the Advisory Committee for the town of Foxborough, Massachusetts. Tim's husband to Kimberly, father of 2 teenagers, and together they have a dog named Tucker. Tim, welcome to Winning Business Radio.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Good afternoon.
I'm glad you could cut some time out. I understand this is your second interview of the day.
It is, but thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You got it. So you said you were involved in a chamber program this morning. You don't do interviews like every day, all day, just so people know.
I don't. I have to do law work at some point in time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate your time. So first, tell us about your wife, Kimberly.
So my wife, Kimberly, is from Denver, Colorado, originally. Mm-hmm. I met her in law school. She's a lawyer as well. And we've been together since law school.
Very cool.
Quite a while.
And 2 teenagers?
Yes, I've got a daughter who is 16 and a son who's 15.
What are they into?
Mostly sports. My daughter is a competitive cheerleader and a lacrosse player, and my son plays football, hockey, and lacrosse.
Excellent. So I like the audience to have a bit of a guest's backstory. So tell us where you grew up.
So I grew up in Canton, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Dorchester, but I only lived there till about 4.
We call that OFD, but you're not,
Right, right.
originally from Dorchester.
And so my formative years were spent in Canton,
Mm-hmm.
and I went to BC High in
Mm-hmm.
Dorchester. I
That's Boston
graduated there.
College High School.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Graduated from Boston College High School in 1986. And then, as you said, I went on to the College of the Holy Cross.
So at BC High, you played football and ran track, right? And you're also a member of student council.
Yes. Wow, you did your homework.
I did my homework, and you were also selected for the National Honor Society.
I
Congratulations
was.
on that.
Thank you. Yes.
And at the College of the Holy Cross, you played club rugby. That had to be a lot of fun. Intramural hockey, and member of not just tough and good looking everyone, but Sigma Tau Delta National Honor Society. So that's quite an honor too.
Thank you.
When and why did you decide to go to law school, Tim?
So when I was in high school, I took
Yeah.
a law class that was an elective course, and the teacher approached me after the semester and said, you really have an analytical mind. You should consider going to law school. And I hadn't really thought about it before then, but got into my head. And then when I was at Holy Cross, I was an English major, and there's not much you can do with that degree. So I decided,
Except speak well.
Right. So I decided let's try law school, and so I applied, and I got into a couple schools. Suffolk was the choice because it was local and I could afford it, and I wanted to work in this area, and it's a really good school if you want to work in and around Boston.
Agreed. Another question on the when and why. When and why did you decide to focus on labor and employment law, mostly anyway?
Well, it's interesting. I didn't really plan to focus on it until it happened. I was at a insurance defense firm. I was basically a worker bee. They forced me to sit at a desk every day and just grind out billable hours. And
that's what the chain to the desk corner is that?
Yeah, basically. And during that time, I had a few employment law cases, but not as many, obviously, as come to do in my subsequent career. But
right.
One of the partners at the firm decided that he wasn't happy there, and I wasn't happy there, and so we both spoke to the folks at Foley and Foley, who he knew from high school, and they invited us to join this new firm that they were creating, and they wanted me to perform litigation services for them, particularly labor arbitration work. And I just joined and started doing it and really liked it. I've been doing it ever since. So
clearly found a knack for it, for sure, right?
I hope so. I like to think so.
Well, we'll check. No. I'm sure we know you have a very good reputation, so we know you're good at it. I noticed you were a law clerk during law school. Talk about what that entailed.
So I worked at a law firm called Johnson, Mee and May. Al Johnson was a fairly prominent criminal defense attorney. He actually represented Pamela Smart. I don't know if you remember her.
Sure.
And he used to be a partner of F. Lee Bailey. So he was the character. He was a very big personality, and they had a lot of interesting cases on the criminal defense side. I learned fairly quickly that I didn't want to be a criminal defense attorney, but that I enjoyed court work and litigation. So I started to look for a job in that area after law school.
Let's see. Tell us about Healy & Healy. You were there for about 15 years. That was a long run. Must have learned a lot.
Yeah, well, I did learn a lot about a lot of things, which because, as I said, it was an insurance defense firm, so you get all sorts of different types of cases. I handled everything from medical malpractice to fire losses, contract cases, car accidents, slip and falls. I mean, you name it, it came across my desk in that time. So it was a really great experience to try to understand how to handle a whole host of different issues and how to litigate a whole host of different types of cases. And then dealing with insurance companies on a regular basis really helped me to understand insurance. I did a lot of insurance policy analysis, coverage dispute cases.
Mm-hmm.
So I really got a good handle on insurance, and I try to continue to bring those experiences to my clients even now when we have matters that might go a little bit beyond employment law, but that I've had experience with.
Right. What would you say? I'll put you on the spot slightly, but I don't think too much. What were a couple of maybe the most important lessons you learned from your time at Healy and Healy?
Well, I learned that there's no substitute for working hard at something.
Mm.
You know, I really felt like when I came out of law school that I knew legal concepts, but I didn't know how to practice law. And the only way to learn that is to just do it. And
Right.
so you just grind through it, and you learn how to become a good lawyer. You learn how to write, how to express an argument that's clear and concise and to the point, so that people get it quickly and understand it, and it moves them to make a decision in favor of your client. So I feel like at Healy and Healy, I learned how to do that. I learned how to present a case, how to argue my client's position, how to focus people on the issues that most favored my clients and away from the ones that favored my opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates into a lot of different fields, including what I do now in employment law. When I litigate a case now, I try to do the same thing. But I think it also helps when you're just trying to convince people of the best way to proceed with, say, an employee matter or a contract matter. Trying to give advice, as long as you can be focused and succinct and make your point clearly in a short way, which I'm not doing right now.
You're fine.
You can get them to where you need them to go.
So talk about what litigation really means, and it doesn't. And to some, that used to me, inferred trial, but not necessarily.
Yeah. So trial work. Unfortunately, we don't go to trial as much as we would like as trial lawyers. It doesn't tend to happen as often as it used to back, the olden days, if you will.
And you don't say, "I object," and get yelled at by the judge like once a day, right?
Right.
Like they do on TV.
I mean, the court system is highly overloaded with matters, and they don't have time for all the trials that people would like. So everything tends to go to some sort of pretrial negotiation, a mediation, a conciliation, an arbitration, and they tend to resolve 95+% of the cases through non-litigation, non-trial matters. Litigation today is pre-trial. It's discovery, it's depositions, it's negotiating with the opponent. It's trying to convince them ahead of trial that their case isn't as good as they think, and trying to get things settled. Trying to find a place where the parties can meet, where they're both happy, but they're both a little unhappy too. So that's litigation today.
Okay. And you're doing a lot, I don't know if you still are, but certainly during the pandemic, my guesses have been doing a lot with telephonic communication as well as video, probably Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, I got to argue a few motions by Zoom, which was an event. My firm is somewhat national. We have 26. We work in 26 different states, and so I got to argue a motion in Maine, which was fun. I've never really been up there. It's sort of northern Maine, the court, and I got to argue a motion, there, and I argued a matter in Texas, which was interesting. Again, didn't have to go there.
Didn't have to be admitted.
Right, well, we have an attorney that's admitted there, and so he was able to get me permission to represent the client there. So we have attorneys admitted in all of these different states,
Mm-hmm.
and as long as the court allows you to get admitted by permission of your coworker, your
Mm-hmm.
fellow attorney, you can present there. So, and then I argued a huge class action motion on the telephone, which was amazing to me. I mean, this was like my client's biggest case ever, and they were so worried about it. Because if they lost, it could have crippled the business. And I'm arguing this on the telephone in my bedroom because I needed quiet.
Yeah.
And then it was during the height of COVID, so I wasn't going to the office. I was working out of the house. So that was really interesting, and we were successful on the motion. So I guess it worked out in the end. But it was strange not being able to see the judge's face, gauging whether or not he thought you were on point.
Or the other attorney. Or
true. Yeah.
His client, his or her client, if they were present either, right?
Right.
Yeah. It's got to be harder. Hey, Tim, we're going to take our first break right now. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with attorney Tim Kenneally, employment and labor attorney with Foley and Foley PC. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Hey everyone, I'm Jimmy Star, the king of cool and your host of the Jimmy Star Show, the entertainment radio show for all you cool and unique people looking to get a behind-the-scenes peek at what's going on in the entertainment industry. Listen in as me and my cool crowd of co-hosts bring you celebrity guests, new music, and the good times in fashion, entertainment, and pop culture. Right, everybody? Right! Tune in live Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on W4CY.com.
Hey, this is Kenny Wayne Shepherd, and you're listening to W4CY Radio.
Hey, this is Rebel Medler. Join me for In Your Face on W4CY.com, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bestgen Wealth Management is a second-generation, family-owned financial planning and wealth advisory firm. In addition to coordinating complex business and personal planning needs, our firm takes a sincere interest in your well-being and personal values. Find us at bestgenwm.com. That's bestgenwm.com, where we consider all our clients an extension of our family. Advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, a registered investment advisor.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Welcome back, and we're back with Tim Kenneally, a labor employment and attorney with Foley and Foley PC. So, Tim, I want to ask, you've been a partner since 2008. Excuse me, you joined the firm in 2008. My bad. You've been a partner since 2013. How does that change your roles and responsibilities? When an attorney becomes partner.
Well, I mean, obviously, you have a vested interest in the success of the organization, and so you try to ensure that you're contributing both as a practicing lawyer and also as a leader in the organization, so that if there are large decisions that have to be made, you're weighing in on those, and you're contemplating how best for the firm to proceed forward. So I think it just expands your role, and since we're business advising attorneys in many ways, it kind of dovetails nicely with what I do as a lawyer, but I feel a heightened responsibility for the success of the firm as a result of my position.
And my guess is, I know you are, you're more engaged in bringing in clients at that point too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the firm is only as successful as we make it, and we have to bring in clients and keep clients to succeed. So, part of my job, actually, since I started with the firm, has been to try to generate new business.
Hmm.
But it became even more so after I was made a partner.
What have you found most successful in generating clients?
So I feel that the most successful method for me is other people making referrals
Yeah.
of me to their clients or their friends and business associates. Um, it, you develop relationships with people, and you obviously over time develop they develop confidence in you through
Hmm.
their exposure to you as an expert. And so after a while, I feel they start bringing business to you. They introduce you to people because they trust you, and they know that you're going to do a good job and you're going to make them look good. So that's, to me, has been the biggest differentiator, and that's only done by getting out there and meeting
Hmm.
people, letting them know that you know what you're doing, that you're willing to work hard, and then after a while, like I said, they trust you enough to introduce you to the people that they care about.
So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit to that point. I know you coached hockey for 7 years. Look like uh,
Yeah,
for
still doing it a
still doing it
little,
now. Okay,
a
okay.
little. Yeah, not as much, but
I coached Pop Warner football for against Foxborough too, as a matter of fact.
nice.
Uh, uh, in West Roxbury Parkway for 16 years. So I get that. Was that really a family decision, or was that a little bit of that decision was to be visible?
It was
I mean,
more,
I'm sure it
my
never hurts,
son.
but
My son was playing, and I went to the program that he was in, and I saw a need for parents that could step in and help out and try to teach the kids how to play and how to be, good sports and get some fun out of it. And I just really felt like I could do that. And so I just started out because my son was involved and I wanted
yeah,
him to have a fun and learning experience. And then it just became so great. I loved it.
yeah.
And the kids were awesome. It was so fun to teach and see them grow. And I taught a lot of the kids for year after year after year and saw them grow up and get better. It was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done, to be honest with
Yeah, that's cool. I totally enjoyed my time coaching as well. And then you've been involved in the town. You were for a number of years actively involved as a member and vice chair of the Economic Development Committee in Foxborough. Tell us what that entailed, and was there any ulterior motive in business development with that decision?
you. So yeah, the answer to that question is yes.
Hmm.
I there were two reasons to get involved. One, I wanted to understand how the financial decisions were made in the town that I live in.
Hmm.
I wanted to know the inner workings of the government town so that I could be more involved in uh, sort of steering the town in the direction that I thought would be favorable for my kids as they
Hmm.
grew up.
Hmm.
Um, but I also wanted to meet more people in town, and again felt that the more people that I met, the more people that got to know me, the more people would either come to me for help or direct me to their friends and business colleagues and whatnot for work. So that's why I did it.
What was some of the matters you talked about, or what were some of the responsibilities of the Economic Development Committee?
So the Economic Development Committee in Foxborough is charged with final review of the annual budget.
Hmm.
So what they would do is that every department within the town comes to the committee with their budget and lays out why it is that they should get X number of dollars a year for their department. And
Public
the
Works,
economic, I'm sorry?
Public Works, education. What
Yep. Police, fire, teachers,
recreation?
schools.
Yeah.
So it was a really great position to see the global workings of the town and how all the money is allocated and why it's allocated. And that's what I wanted to understand because I had never really been involved in town government. And this was, I thought the great first stop on the road to understanding town government.
Yeah. What about the advisory committee? You remember the advisory committee for a number of years as well?
Yeah, so that's a very similar type position. It's the same thing where, they come to you with their budgets and they ask you to approve. And ultimately, the advisory committee has a vote on the budget.
Okay.
They vote on whether or not the money should be allocated to these people for a certain, their budget. And in addition to that, the advisory committee is asked, about warrant issues and so they have a say in a lot of what goes on in the town. So yet again, it was a situation where I felt, I'm going to learn about everything that goes on in the town and understand how all the departments operate, how they spend their money, how decisions are made.
And as obviously a town resident, you have a vested interest in it being done properly.
I thought so. Yeah. But it was, to some degree, it was a disappointing learning experience. Like we have a town meeting in Foxborough, and so few people go. Town meeting.
For many viewers / listeners that are not in New England, define what town meeting is.
Yeah, so it's instead of having a mayor and whatnot, we have a board of selectmen, and they approve a series of warrant articles based on the advisory committee's recommendations and the various requests of the different departments. And then you go to this meeting at the end of the year. It's typically in May, or not the end of the year, in the middle of the year.
Right.
And you vote on these various warrant articles. Should we spend this money on a new football field? Should we give this money to the fire department for a new fire truck? And all of those things come up. And then the town votes on it. But it's only the people that show up to town meeting. And so if you only have 175 to 200 people in a town of, say, 14,000 people showing up to town meeting, that those 175 to 200 people are deciding all these issues for the entire town. And I was a little disappointed that that's how that system worked. I felt like more people should either show up to town meeting or we should have a different system.
Yeah. It's definitely it works, right? It works in a lot of towns, but it is an old New England thing, right? You don't see it much out of New England.
Right.
If at all. And close to my heart, you're a Rotarian. I'm a Rotarian too. Neponset Valley Sunrise Rotary. We have a morning club in Dedham. Tell the audience about Rotary and why you're involved.
Well, I must admit that I ended up having to step away from Rotary because of time commitments. And I do want to go back to that because so the Rotary is, in my opinion, one of the greatest organizations for giving in the United States. And they spend their time solely focused on helping other people. And, I didn't feel like I had that in my life, really, when I was just, practicing law and working with the town. But I did it for a few years and I really loved it. And we did a lot of things that were great in the town. But as my kids got a little older and I was running around from, lacrosse field to hockey rink to cheerleading to, gymnastics and all, I just got to the point where I couldn't do it all. And so I do want to go back to that later in life when things, the home front slow down a little bit more.
Yep. Well, yeah, whenever anyone asks me about Rotary, I just tell them we're really good at raising money. We're really good at giving it all back out to now our club's working on water system for the Mashpee Indian tribe, believe it or not. right? In this modern day, 2021, they're having challenges and no money to fix their irrigation system, and they grow their own crops. So that's one example.
Water security is a huge issue, and Rotary's taking it head on, just like they did with polio.
Right.
The world needs good, fresh, clean water, and there's so many places that don't have it, and that's something that Rotary should be proud of.
Absolutely. Hey, we're going to get into the work that you do and spend the rest of our time there, but we're going to take our second break right here. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes with Tim Kenneally.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show? Well, W4CY Radio makes dreams come true. You can be a radio personality on the #1 ranked internet radio station in West Palm Beach, Florida. We can be heard in 105 countries and all U.S. states. Promote your business, earn up to $10,000 per month and more. It's all up to you. Have fun and be heard. Call 561-506-4031. That's 561-506-4031. Start your radio show now.
This is Rebel Medler. Join me for In Your Face on W4CY.com, Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bestgen Wealth Management is a second-generation, family-owned financial planning and wealth advisory firm. In addition to coordinating complex business and personal planning needs, our firm takes a sincere interest in your well-being and personal values. Find us at bestgenwm.com. That's bestgenwm.com, where we consider all our clients an extension of our family. Advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, a registered investment advisor.
Hey, this is Johnny Three Tears from Hollywood Undead, and you're listening to W4CY Radio.
I do whatever it takes to make it break through. Anything I'm face to face with, it's true.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Welcome back. And once again, we have Tim Kenneally, labor and employment attorney with Foley & Foley PC. Tim, I wanted to ask you about a couple things. I want to get into the primary work that you do. I know you do a number of different things. Your main focus, as I understand it, is labor and employment. But you do contract law, HIPAA, affirmative action, MCAD, right, and EEOC. Yep. And probably other areas that your clients might need you to do. Can you give us examples of some of those areas?
Absolutely. So I spend a lot of my time defending claims of alleged discrimination, harassment, and wage and hour violations that are brought against my clients. So, for example, I'm defending a case right now where one of my clients is accused of terminating an individual because of his race. And my client says that the individual was terminated for harassing a young female employee. So that's a very common case that'll handle. I mentioned earlier about a class action matter. That was a wage and hour class action case in which my client was accused of failing to properly pay wages for meal breaks, and my client was able to show the judge that they had handled that situation, I believe, properly, and that it wasn't a class action case. And so my client asked me to defend that case and help them avoid a class action lawsuit. Another type of case that claim that I'll handle is what's called retaliation. So, for example, I have a case right now where the company terminated a contract that it had with this employee. Mm-hmm. The employee claims that they terminated the contract because the employee had raised complaints about harassment to the management, and the company takes the position that they terminated this employee because the employee was being difficult and rude to coworkers, and coworkers were complaining about the individual's behavior to them. So you can see that a lot of the cases involve two parties that are at odds on the facts, and basically I'm asked to try to present my client's factual case to the best of my ability to the court.
And I noticed you're admitted to the U.S. Supreme Court. That was 2002. Now, that happens when you have a matter before the court?
No, actually, it happens. You have to apply to be admitted, and they basically have a whole process that you have to go through, and you want to be admitted to that bar because of the prestige of it, and on the off chance that someday you might have the opportunity to go down there and argue a case. But I did, unfortunately, have not had that opportunity yet.
That would be pretty cool, at least even
Yes.
from my limited perspective. But okay, I'm jumping around just a little. You don't have to worry about that. But I was interested in a couple of areas. In our pre-call, we talked about, COVID always comes up, right? COVID, it's hard to have a conversation these days without the words COVID, pandemic, vaccine. And we got to talking. It was pretty fascinating to me, and I know it is to you, about whether an employer can mandate whether their employees get vaccinated or not. In fact, I saw this morning that the Pentagon has just said everybody in the armed forces as of September, whatever the date, 15th or something, must be. Now, that's different. They're not really an employer per se, right? But I'd be curious what you think. But talk about whether an employer can or cannot, what the issues are relative to that question.
Sure. So as a general rule, an employer right now can mandate the COVID-19 vaccination. There are, however, exceptions to the rule, like there are pretty much every law that we write. It's an exception to the general rule, right?
Right.
So the exceptions are if the person has a disability that prevents them from safely being vaccinated, that the employer has to make an exception for those individuals. Similarly, if a person has a sincerely held religious belief that vaccination is inappropriate for them or it's against their religion, they can, under those circumstances, be accepted or excluded from a mandatory vaccination program. Other than those two primary exceptions, the employer can typically mandate that the staff be vaccinated. But the issue really is broader than that. You have to, in my opinion, look at your situation, your work environment, your workplace within the facts and circumstances of your workplace. And I'll give you an example. So if you're a hospital and you're dealing with patients, yes, of course, you can mandate vaccination for your medical staff because it's necessary for the safety of the patients and for the medical staff. But at my law firm, where we can all work remotely and we don't even really need to be around each other that much, you don't need a mandatory vaccination program. So typically when clients come to me and ask me that question, I say, well, here's the law, but let's look at the specifics of your work environment and whether or not it makes sense for you under the circumstances to have that program.
Is it like a public benefit? Like, for example, I don't know if this is a good or bad one, but I don't know why Ford comes to mind, but Ford can't mandate that all its employees drive Fords.
Yeah, well, there's certainly a social benefit issue. Some people believe socially it benefits society to have the vaccination. I know this isn't a political show, but
Sure.
that obviously that's my view. That's why I got vaccinated, but it's not everybody's view. And so you do have some employees that come to their employer and say, "Look, I don't want to get vaccinated. I don't believe in it. I'm afraid of it." And your employer should, at that point, look at the person's position and determine is it necessary that we require this person to be vaccinated or separate from this employee? Because there might be a reasonable alternative. There might be an accommodation that can be made that will allow that person to continue within your employment without being vaccinated. So, for example, you could mandate that that person has to wear a mask to work. You could mandate that that person has to work remotely. You could require that person to work in a section of the office where they're not exposed to other people, or change their schedule so they're not coming in contact with people who are unvaccinated on your staff, or any host of different scenarios could be looked at to determine whether or not you can keep that person. And I think employers are served to do that because, as you probably have seen, it's very difficult right now to find staff. And if you're firing everybody that doesn't want to get vaccinated, you might not have enough employees to serve your clients and run your business.
How does HIPAA law overlap with this?
So, people get confused about HIPAA law quite a bit. HIPAA is a law that pertains to what we call covered entities. And covered entities are businesses that are, and this is an oversimplification, but are businesses that are in the healthcare world. They provide healthcare, or they're involved in healthcare, and they receive personal information, personal healthcare information, because of their role in that world. They're covered by HIPAA. They can't disclose the content of those records that they get, or the information that they're given as it relates to treatment. But many employers receive healthcare information about their employees that's not covered by HIPAA. It's covered by other rules of privacy,
like insurance information.
Health
insurance
for
related,
example,
maybe.
If an employee were to file a workers' compensation claim, the employer might need to know, well, what's the injury? How long are they going to be out? What are their limitations? And all of that is medical information, but it's not HIPAA protected such that the employer, if it were to get released, is violating HIPAA, but they're violating other rules. So obviously, every employer has to have a system for protecting confidential medical information, but that's because the person's privacy rights have to be protected, not necessarily their HIPAA rights.
So, as an alternative, could a company mandate testing?
Yes. Employers can require a test under certain circumstances. Again, there are a lot of factors that you have to consider when deciding whether or not to mandate that somebody gets tested. You have to pay for that test.
Okay.
You have to pay for their time going to get the test because it's considered work time. So there are a lot of things to consider before having a mandatory testing policy, but a lot of employers have put that in place under the current circumstances in order to try to curtail a circumstance where someone with the virus comes into the workplace and infects others.
It's certainly a pretty complex issue from the sounds of it.
It's kept us pretty busy over the last 18 to 24 months, that's for sure, yeah.
What are some other employment-related issues or matters that you would handle? And do you help people proactively? Do you work with your clients and help them to put systems, policies, procedures in place to avoid problems later?
A big piece of our firm's puzzle is to provide proactive risk prevention policies and practices for our clients. So yes, a lot of what I do on that is to write contracts for our clients. So whether it's a confidentiality agreement, non-disclosure agreement, non-solicitation agreement. So what those are is, obviously businesses have certain information that they don't want other businesses to know. And it's not generally known to the public outside of the business. That's confidential information. And every business has a little bit of that, or some have a lot. And businesses need to protect that in order to be successful and continue to achieve what they want to achieve. So having a good contract that says that your staff will respect the confidentiality of that information, they won't take it from you, they won't give it to others, they won't use it to profit, they won't allow others to use it to profit, is a big piece of a risk prevention strategy. So I do that quite a bit. I write those contracts.
Mm-hmm.
I also write contracts that deal with not soliciting your clients. A company spends a lot of time, effort, and money developing clients, building a client base, and they introduce their staff to them, and the staff develops a relationship with them and is in a position to perhaps take those clients away from the business when they exit the workplace. So we create contracts that have the employees promising that when they leave a business for at least a certain period of time, they won't try to take those clients away from the business that spent a lot of time and effort making them theirs.
What's a typical period? 1 year, 2 years, longer?
Yeah, so it's oftentimes a year, but there are certain circumstances where we might extend that out, depending upon the amount of money that a company might pay somebody for that agreement. So we might extend it to 24 months if they pay a premium for the person to give them that promise.
And how does a non-solicitation differ from a non-competition or non-compete?
So a non-compete in a simplistic way is you can't go to work for that guy over there because he's a competitor of mine. A non-solicitation is you can't take my clients over to that guy's business. So, I mean, it's oversimplification, but that's the general gist of it. So non-competition has become more and more frowned upon in this country. The courts are less inclined to enforce that. They want people to have the freedom to move from job to job and make a living, but they also want to protect what a business has built up and their goodwill and how hard they've worked to develop clients. And so they're willing to protect the confidential information and the client list, but they're not willing to say to John Smith, you can't go to work for this other company.
And that's mostly state versus federal law?
Well, there's laws in every jurisdiction, really. So Massachusetts has a fairly strict non-competition law that went into effect in October of 2018. And it basically requires employers to purchase a non-compete if you want to have one. I mean, that's again an oversimplification, but it became a very difficult thing in Massachusetts to have a non-compete. In some jurisdictions, it's a little bit easier, and so where we practice in 26 states, we have to familiarize ourselves with each individual state's law regarding non-competition when a client from that jurisdiction comes to us and asks us to write one.
Let me change gears just a little bit. Who's your ideal client, Tim?
Well, I really like working for. I've done a lot of work with professional organizations, doctors, dentists, accountants, financial planners, and I really like working with them primarily because, again, I do a lot of contract work, and they're really involved in getting contracts of the type that I craft, and they understand the importance of those. So for me, that's the kind of client that I like.
Let's see. How have you attracted your clients other than word of mouth? Have you, I know we've met through provisors, you do networking, right? What other forms of networking have worked for you? What other forms of business development have worked for you other than over time, people get to know you and they refer to you?
Well, so we, as a firm, like to do a lot of webinars and education programs. So when a new law will come out or, so for example, paid family medical leave came out in Massachusetts. We did, dozens of seminars for various organizations on that topic. And, we try to, educate the folks that come to those about that law, but also show them that we know what we're doing. And I think that's one of the best tools that you have for showing people that you know what you're doing is actually giving them a free seminar about how the law works.
Very cool. Yeah, it sounds like it works. I think it does too. Tim, we're out of time. I want to, again, thank you for being here. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if they've got questions or would like to talk to you?
So email, it's tim@foleylawpractice.com. That's probably the easiest way to get me. We also have our website, which is Foley Law Practice, www.foleylawpractice. So, send me an email if you need help. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Take advantage of that. Tim, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and your being here.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
You got it. And
see you
thanks,
soon,
everybody. We will. We will see each other this week. Thanks, everybody, for listening and watching. This is a show about business and business challenges. If you've got concerns about the growth of your company, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio. You can drop me a note, kevin@winningbusinessradio.com. Our company is called Winning Incorporated. We develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. We're part of the Sandler training universe. We're not right for everybody, but maybe we should have a conversation. Thank you, as always, to expert engineer Rebel Medler. Tune in again next Monday, August 16th at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do it all over again. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.
Great job, Tim. Thanks.